Hey guys, so Joe here, and today we're actually trying a microphone, so that's new, as well as I decided to see if you can game on something that's very cheap and what is the right combination of parts that you want to use with that build. And it's not in any sort of finalized-ish form, it's just something I have sitting here, but I'm going to show you what it is and what I think is the proper way to get into super cheap entry-level gaming in 2019. If you're new to the channel, please consider getting subscribed down below. That would be awesome. You'll help the channel grow as well as get some input into what we do going forward. I like hearing from you guys. I like answering your questions. If you have tech questions, things like that, leave those down below. Also, would you watch a live stream if I started doing one or 2 days a week just for fun? Let me know that too. Today's video is on a system that I put together from parts I've had laying around. And I do that a lot on this channel, mainly because I have more parts than I realize. I collect them, I put them in boxes or in totes, and then I shove them in the closet. And then when I go through and I start cleaning stuff out, I start finding parts like what I found today. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop you off the tripod, show you what's in this particular system, give you a little bit of a pan over. I'm sure you've seen something like this on other people's channels. This is an HP pre-built system that's been kind of modified and hacked up and turned into a entry-level gaming computer that actually does a lot better than some people think. So let's take a closer look at what the equipment is. So as you can see from the front, this is one of those flat-sitting HP systems. It's a, I guess, small form factor. It's not an ultra small form factor or anything like that. Originally this had an i5 2400, and currently it actually has an i3 2120 that I found laying around in a box of CPUs. And I had this computer sitting here because I actually took the CPU out of this and sold it, and wound up with just the bare bones board and things for like less than $5. And the chip I've had for who knows how long. I didn't even realize I had it. But that's under the stock cooler, and stock-ish cooler. And I took the front intake fan off of here and actually aimed it towards there and added a second fan going directly into there in order to keep it nice and cool. It doesn't overclock, so it doesn't get super hot, but I still just wanted to make sure. The drive is disabled because I have the SSD and the spinning hard drive going right now. Tip for you guys, it's probably not the best idea to have a spinning hard drive just sitting like that. It is sitting in a case or a caddy from another case, so it should be okay for now. It does have onboard graphics, however, I don't have a VGA cable, and this one uses DisplayPort in the back, and I didn't feel like grabbing my DisplayPort, so I grabbed the GT1030 and a Thermaltake PCI-e extension. These are about 20 bucks for a shielded one like that. The Thermaltakes are nicer because they actually have mounting screws and tabs and flanges so that you can actually put these into vertical mount cases without any extra effort or much extra effort and secure them better. So we're booted up to the desktop. Next thing to do is go ahead and open up and show you what a 2120 can do in 2019. Yeah. One thing I've noticed is since I've used this copy of Windows 10 a bunch of times, it's saying activate Windows, so one of my other motherboards must have used the product key that it was linked to. Oh well, no big deal. I could always get a aftermarket SCD key or something of the like. But let's go ahead and open Cinebench. I'm not going to make you sit through one because this is more of can you use it for gaming. But let's look down here and you can see, I'm sorry, it's a 2130 CPU. And it actually ran a 273 point score, actually 280 point score. It's been a week since I did this, so I didn't exactly remember it. But it is a dual core with 4 threads, so much like that Dell system I showed you, the pre-built, this one is also a 2-core with hyper-threading. However, it does run at a higher frequency because it's an actual desktop chip and not a laptop chip. And you can see I've run a bunch of different stuff like overclock things and whatnot. But 280 points is not bad for what it does. Here's where it gets interesting, because There are a lot of options for what you could pair with an i3. However, not all of them are going to make a lot of sense. This one has a GT 1030. I've also tested it with the 750 Ti. This has 2 gigs of VRAM. The 750 Ti does not. But let's just take a look at things like web browsing. This system has 12 gigs of RAM in it, and it runs perfectly acceptably. I know it's a very, very loose term, acceptably. But as you can see, boots up no problem. This is one of my videos. As soon as this ad's done, there we go. It starts playing at 720. We can go to 1080p. Let's see what it does. It's not dropping any frames. It's getting a good buffer. It's got an over minute-and-a-half buffer already at 1080p, so the RAM is doing its job. The wireless, I'm using an Asus wireless adapter, and it's doing great. It's my favorite adapter ever. Yeah, HD playback is perfectly fine on this thing. Steam. Quick look away, I'm putting in my password that I don't remember. Now, I was playing around with a few things. An MSI Afterburner on this GT 1030. I've got it overclocked quite a bit in order to make it acceptably okay. And I have it overclocked 175 on the core, 250 on the memory. The 750 Ti, I think I actually have about the same kind of overclocks, but this is a Pascal-based GPU, so it's actually better for things like HD playback and audio through the graphics card if you need to do it. So it does have some advantages over 750 Ti. However, if I had a 750 Ti 2 gig, it would probably actually outperform this 1030 in most applications, believe it or not, especially if you have one that has additional power adapters and plugs on the end of it. I think what we'll do now is we'll go ahead and we'll boot up 3D Mark, and we'll use Skydiver because the graphics card is not that great, and we'll see what kind of score it comes up with, and we'll compare it to other scores that I've gotten. It's funny that it wants me to run TimeSpy, but when you click on it here, nope, it doesn't want to do it. So yeah, we're going to run something easier to run like Skydiver. Now's the part where we wait. This is supposed to be a noise canceling microphone, but we'll see when I play it back because it looks like it's picking up noise from the fan on the graphics card from here. This is also not optimal. Just having your graphics card laying on top of your power supply, probably not optimal, but there's no room for it in this case. I don't have a half height bracket, and even still the back of that case is damaged. So when I have it in there, it doesn't actually allow me to connect the HDMI cord. I skipped the opening cinematic here. Here we are. We have a score of 9,630 in Skydiver. The GPU score, and I'll put it up here on the screen so you can see it a little bit easier, was 12,495 with an average of 56 to 58 FPS. Physics score, 4,407. When we look online and compare to other systems such as my X58 or even my 7700K, let's see what kind of scores we get. So we'll go to Skydiver. On the 5675 and a 1080 Ti, I get a score of 37,359. So yes, about 4 times as fast. With the 1030 on a X5675, you're talking about a 12,454, which is 3,000 points faster. And as I was saying before, it's actually a little bit faster with the 750 Ti because with the 750 Ti, it returned a 10,617 on this CPU. So, not exactly the greatest scores ever, but completely usable. Synthetics are fun, but when you're talking about a low-end system like this, you're not going to be expecting the best scores for synthetic benchmarking. What it does do very competently, and that's what we're going to show you right now, is play games, especially these easier to run games such as Csgo and even GTA 5. and we'll load those up right now. I'm going to go ahead and come back once the game is loaded. Here we are, we're on the main screen of CSGO. As you can see, the CPU is at about 28%. It's running at 3.4 gigahertz, which is its normal speed, but the GPU is at almost 2 gigahertz, which is pretty cool considering it allows for power over voltage and power limit increases without a 6-pin PEG connector. But what I want to show you is what we're going to be running in terms of the visuals. 1080p full screen, no laptop and none of that junk. But you got stuff like anisotropic filtering is at 4 times, MSAA is at 2 times. All the graphics qualities are at high. I do not have motion blur and I do not have VSync. Although I should probably use, no, we don't need to do that. But anyways, let's go into a bot match. I don't play this a lot and I don't want to also get in trouble for just jumping in and out of live games. I've played other games where you get yelled at for just dumping out or lagging out of an online game, and I don't need that kind of headache. But you will want to be paying attention, and again, I'll put the scores up here as to what it's running. And the main thing I'm comparing this system to would be like the AMD A10 or the Athlon 750K or even the A10 7860K, because they're in the same kind of realm of performance in terms of things like Cinebench. But this chip, even though it's a baby chip, an i3 chip, still has better functionality because it's got some level 3 cache. And you're going to see that in its ability to run a card up. On a 750 Ti, the Athlon X4 750K would not run the graphics card at full speed. It would only run it to about 70% in any game. Here you can see we're over 100 FPS. When we get indoors, of course, you're never going to get your full speed out of any kind of card when you're pairing it with such a low-powered processor. But this is a much more playable experience, as you're going to see, if I don't die. But we're talking in the 105, 110 range. Oops. Right here. Yes, if my guys weren't stupid idiots, we wouldn't be dead right now. Hey, this Razer Naga's not bad, but well over 100 FPS at 1080p high. If I turned down the graphics, I'd get an even better score, or a better FPS return. Now I could use the CAN benchmarks, but honestly, you're not getting the most out of your money by doing that. Because another 10-15 FPS on a 60 Hz panel doesn't matter because you can't even take advantage of it. But this is absolutely smooth. The processor and the GPU are running at about what they should be, and it's a very acceptable performance. So that's CSGO. Averaging between 90 and 120 FPS is very acceptable considering this system. Let's go ahead and boot up Grand Theft Auto 5, which will take the rest of our lives because Grand Theft Auto 5 does not like to boot without going through the Steam loader and then the Rockstar loader and then whatever else it wants to do, which is a pain in the patootsky. Multiple loaders to play a game, and on a lower powered chip or a lower capable chip like this, it actually can take a little bit longer. Let's see what it's doing with the CPU just from booting up. Not bad. It's only using about 16%. But this right here, where my mouse is circling, that's the big deal. 3 megs of level 3 cache makes a bit of a difference. If it had been 3 megabytes of level 2 cache, it'd be running at about the same speed as the Athlon X4 750K. But since it isn't, it's running a little bit better, except for the fact that it's updating my stupid launcher. Grand Theft Auto 5 is not loading right now. We're only a few days after the launch of Red Dead 2, so there could be issues with the launcher, could be an issue with the internet connection. I'm not sure. It failed 3 times, not on my end, but on their end, so the only thing I can think is that their servers are overwhelmed. So instead, let's load up Batman and see what happens there. This is Arkham Knight, which was the last in the series. Although if you ask me, the best, as long as you don't finish the game, spoiler. Let's go in here and see what we're running at. It looks like we're at 720p, so we're going to change that for sure. 768, okay, so it was running a little bit better than I was expecting. We'll do that. but none of that matters. So we have to run it at low to avoid running out of the VRAM buffer. But I don't think we're going to have much of an issue running this. So let's go ahead and apply these settings and see how it actually runs. Arkham Knight does have a integrated benchmark, so we can run that, and it actually ignores things like the 90 FPS frame limit when it does work. So let's take a look and see what this game is actually capable of on a dual-core 4-threaded processor with a 2GB non-power enhanced graphics card. Not expecting a whole lot, but it should still come back at a playable frame rate, I hope. So remember, this is 1080p on a 2GB card, and anything over 30 FPS for the average should return a playable experience, especially if you limit the frames to 30 FPS. And we'll show that once this is done and we actually load the actual game. The good thing is that the graphics card is not being held back by the CPU. In fact, the GPU appears to be holding back the CPU a little bit. Which does in fact create what is called a CPU bottleneck. Those terms are so horribly misused. It's kind of like when people confuse dilation and constriction of eye vessels, or the iris of your eyeball thingy. Bottleneck is not a term I use much, and I don't like it because virtually everybody uses it wrong, and we'll go into that one of these days in an actual separate video. But in this case, the GPU is being bottlenecked, or is actually bottlenecking the CPU, because the CPU has extra information it wants to give the GPU, but the GPU is actually at its maximum capacity. So the CPU has to wait to feed more information to the GPU. That is the definition of a bottleneck. When a GPU is sitting at 40% and the CPU is pinned at 100%, that is not a bottleneck. That is being CPU bound. You're exceeding the capabilities of one component, which is causing the other component to run at less than full capabilities downstream. If your upstream is the problem, then it becomes a bottleneck. If it's downstream, then you know what I mean. Average 34 FPS. So let's go ahead and we're actually going to load up a game and go into it and see what happens when we just do a little bit of running around. I'm going to go ahead and leave it at a 90 FPS limit. And we'll just do a little bit of jumping. I'm using a mouse, so I wasn't planning on using this game to test with. Wow. I don't think I've ever actually played this using the, I don't know what's the grapnel boost. Oh, okay. High 20s, mid 20s, as we're going into a heavily populated area is probably normal. Yeah, I don't know what any of the controls are, so let's just do this. I don't know what counter is. Ah, there we go. Heavy combat, again, high 20s in the area of 30. Okay, just called in the whatchamafletchet. So even using the tank, driving around, mid 20s. I could actually play this because this was actually made to run on consoles first. It, even though it can display 90 FPS, it seems to always run like your car-based missions at almost a locked 30 FPS, especially when you're in heavy combat. Everything slows down, but not in a intentional way, I don't think. That right there is how we do it on this channel. We take a $5 computer, once you get rid of the original CPU, a unknown CPU, I don't remember where I got it, I know I've had it for years, an SSD and a hard drive, which I've used in many different test rigs, and a GT1030 that I've also had for 2 years. that for some reason still costs more than a 750 Ti, even though I showed in the 3D Mark it really shouldn't be, because I don't think it actually outperforms the damn thing. But we'll test that in a future video, as well as the 970 and the 750 Ti, because this video is getting a little bit long in the tooth. That's about it. If you like this video, give me a thumbs up. Use the Amazon affiliate link down below for things you need to buy. Maybe consider donating something to the channel for fun. I'm working on a couple of projects that will take a little bit of time to earn the funds for, so when I get those things put together, I'll be happy to add them to the channel. Your patronage through Amazon, or even using Patreon and becoming a supporter of the channel, will help me do other goofy, weird things. I don't want to give away what they are because I don't have them 100% set yet, and I'd hate to fail on those. But come back, because there are a couple of builds and updates coming. Now that I'm done with all that pandering, I'll talk to you later.